Last video, I've evaluated Overly Sarcastic Productions' Journey to the West episodes 1 to 3. Well, this time I'm not going to evaluate it, just add additional context from the 1592 text. Context that even if you are Chinese or Han ethnic, you might not know or understand until you read the 1592 100 chapters and read some analysis. But keep in mind that this only pertains to novel accuracy, not the evolving folklore of Journey to the West. For example, the Chinese as of 2025 tend to add the detail of Lang Shen's third eye in adaptations, but in terms of the 1592 novel compilation, that detail is inaccurate. As of episode 3, OSP stopped at where the 5 pilgrims are gathered, hence beginning the start of the episodic trials. In the Ming Dynasty, it's popular for authors to essentially tell the same story with minor changes as a narrative too. In the case of Journey, the purpose is to observe character growth as the pilgrims become more effective at dealing with similar scenarios, which, for the full explanation, you can watch my video. So let's begin.
Last time on Journey to the West, the virtuous monk Tripitaka found himself added to the menu of an evil cave demon, whose powerful wind laid even the mighty Sun Wukong low. With the help of the Bodhisattva Ling Chi, Sun Wukong and Tripitaka's new disciple Pigsy found a way to defeat the cave demon and save their master, only to encounter a new threat in the form of a cunning and powerful river spirit that barred their way. Unable to fight him underwater, Sun Wukong again had to rely on the skills of Pigsy to lure the demon out, but when even that failed, he called upon the merciful Kuan Yin to intercede on their behalf. The river spirit turned into an unlikely ally when it was revealed that Kuan Yin had previously enlisted him as Tripitaka's third disciple. Now with all our allies assembled, we are finally ready to embark on the Journey to the West.
Yeah, I see the Dragon Ball now.
Trekking westward through a particularly uninhabited stretch of mountain when Tripitaka's tummy starts getting the rumblies and he tells Monkey to go find him some vegetarian food. So Monkey flies off to get him some
So you might be wondering why San Zang specifically asks Wukong here. After all, from our perspective, we know that Wukong is the strongest one here. Sending him off for a simple gathering mission and leaving the group vulnerable just seems bad strategically. Well, let's understand what happens before this. Because we read or saw Wukong's abilities and his background, but from San Zang's perspective, Wukong didn't really do that much. Remember, when Wukong is off doing something, San Zang is always just chilling somewhere. Bai Longma joining the crew, that's a problem solved by Guan Ying. At the Guan Yin temple which burns down, that's a problem caused by Wukong. That's also solved by Guan Yin. Against the Robed Guai, San Zang saw Ba Jie's fight against the Tiger Vanguard, but he didn't see how fierce the battle was between Wukong and Robed Guai. In the end, that's Ling Ji Bodhisattva solving the problem. At the Flowing Sand River, Wukong said he was afraid of water. In San Zang's eyes, that's all Ba Jie doing the work. And that's the context setting up the distrust San Zang has for Wukong. He didn't see the contributions Wukong made. So, going to chapter 27, Wukong led a safe path forward for the group. And when San Zang is frightened by random animals like pythons and tigers, Wukong let off a cry that made those animals retreat. We know what Wukong did, but San Zang doesn't understand that. From his perspective, they have been simply walking a path that's been safe all along, and this monkey is just running in front giving a random shout, while the other 2 disciples are behind carrying the luggage. So when they reach the summit, look at this exchange. San Zang tells Wukong with a commanding attitude, "Go and get arms." Wukong retorts with a, "Hey, you aren't very smart, there's no people here." This triggers San Zang to this long scolding and calling Wukong lazy. It's because San Zang thinks like this that he asks Wukong to get food, not the other 2. When Tripitaka's tummy starts getting the rumblies and he tells Monkey to go find him some vegetarian food. So Monkey flies off to get him some fruit or something, in the process disturbing a local mountain demon, the White Bone Spirit, who pops out to see what's up. She sees Tripitaka and immediately realizes he's the monk all the demons are talking about, and that, because he's the reincarnation of Golden Cicada and has pursued a perfect monk lifestyle, if she eats him, she'll become immortal. So she's about to swoop down and grab him then and there, but she recognizes Sandy and Pigsy as 2 former celestial warriors and backs off, resolving to be sneakier about this. So she disguises herself as a beautiful young woman and minces over to Tripitaka with some delicious poisoned rice for him. So Pigsy immediately gets his flirt on while the White Bone Spirit spins a sob story about having to care for her aging parents that she totally has. So while she's trying to convince Tripitaka to eat her delicious not at all poisoned rice, Monkey flies back with an armload of peaches and immediately sees that this girl is a demon with his special demon eyes. So he drops everything and whips out. This is the 火眼金睛, or literally fiery eyes golden pupils. So in the context of the 1592 publication, it's not exactly clear whether the eyes gave him some sort of magical properties, able to see through whether someone is human or Yao. But some say that based on how Wukong wasn't able to see through some things in later chapters, that it's just a physical characteristics of his eyes. And it's because Wukong has lived for so long and simply used his experience to know. Well, some later adaptations just took this to have some magical properties anyway that lets him literally discern the true nature of something. And 火眼金睛 nowadays can also be used as a vocabulary to describe someone having discerning eyes. So, for example, by this Zhihu post, 3 cannabis plants were found by eagle-eyed police officers. Police officers with 火眼金睛. And in this chapter's example, we've already been told that it's a mountain that no humans can inhabit. So a young woman randomly appearing out of nowhere is ultra sus.
This girl is a demon with his special demon eyes. So he drops everything and whips out his murder stick, but Tripitaka panics and grabs him because seriously, dude, at least explain your motivation. So Monkey's like, alright dude, listen. Disguising yourself as a hot chick? That's like man-eating demon trick number 1. Hell, I did it all the time back when I ate people. Amazingly, this stirring...
So Wukong hasn't actually eaten people based on certain clues in 1592. He's mostly saying this just to scare San Zang. In chapter 39, for example, when trying to resurrect someone, the text explicitly tells us that Ba Jie had been a cannibal since his youth and his breath is unclean. Wukong, on the other hand, has a pure breath because the food sustaining him had been fruits and nuts.
Stirring argument fails to convince Tripitaka, so Monkey's like, alright, I get it. You think she's hot. How about I give you 2 lovebirds a little privacy? And while Tripitaka's paralyzed with embarrassment, Monkey smacks the demon in the face. So Tripitaka's like,
Monkey, what the hell?
But Monkey points out that the delicious, totally not poisoned rice had rotted and filled with maggots as soon as he killed her, which is not typically a trait of healthy food. So Tripitaka almost believes him until Pigsy, extremely salty about Monkey ruining his chances to score, goes all, oh sure, come on, what's more likely? That Monkey just killed a demon? Or that Monkey just murdered an innocent girl and used his powers to make you think he killed a demon? So Tripitaka gets really mad and uses...
So if you look at Ba Jie's perspective, he is the experienced Celestial here, right? But Wukong, despite having less experience as a Celestial, is not only more powerful but also more highly positioned. In the Pilgrim group, if Wukong goes away, Ba Jie suddenly becomes the elder disciple. Basically, Ba Jie is severely overestimating his ability to carry the journey down here.
Monkey just murdered an innocent girl and used his powers to make you think he killed a demon. So Tripitaka gets really mad and uses the magic migraine spell, then tells Monkey that a killer can't be one of his disciples. But Monkey manages to...
As mentioned, at this point of the journey, San Zang didn't trust Wukong at all. And there were small little things even way back to the first time just after Wukong came out of the 5 Phases mountain. For instance, San Zang completely clothed just let a completely naked Wukong start the journey instead of sharing any of his clothes. Well, I've explained that San Zang is a Nepo baby character before, being a priest with disciples at a young age, so he's got a lot of ego and doesn't know how to take care of other people. And since Wukong is also full of ego and is rash, a lot of small interactions, San Zang won't feel like he got the respect as the teacher. So for example, when they were at the house of an old man who said he's 130 years old, Wukong replies that, "You are still my great-great-great-great-grandson." Well, take if you're San Zang, you're a 30-odd-year-old hearing this, what do you feel? And these sort of little interactions are basically clashing their egos, and then in this White Bone Spirit chapter in chapter 27, it's just a continuation of that. It just takes very little to push San Zang's distrust.
That a killer can't be one of his disciples, but Monkey manages to persuade him to let him stay, and the group awkwardly treks on after burying the totally innocent girl. Speaking of, the white bone spirit had actually dropped her body right at the moment of impact and skedaddled off into the sky, leaving her body below. She starts working on how to get rid of Monkey so she can get some of that sweet man flesh. So she turns into an elderly woman and hobbles up to the group like, "Excuse me, have any of you seen my beautiful innocent daughter that totally came this way a little while ago? I'd hate to think that something happened to her." So Monkey obviously insta-kills her, again, and Tripitaka flips out, uses the migraine spell, and with Pigsy's encouragement, kicks him out of the group again. But Monkey's like, alright, but if you're gonna kick me out, could you at least get this stupid thing off first? Which is when everyone learns that Tripitaka has no idea how to get Monkey's cursed hat off his head. So he agrees to keep Monkey on as a disciple, since it wouldn't be fair to cut him loose without actually cutting him loose, and they continue on together. Soon enough, they spot a totally innocent old man in the distance, and Pigsy's like, oh, horror of horrors! Clearly this is the patriarch of the family that Sun Wukong so callously murdered for no reason. Clearly Monkey will use his great powers to escape justice and leave us to take the blame. Oh, horror of horrors! yours! Clearly Sun Wukong has bewitched this innocent old man's corpse to look like the body of a demon! In case you haven't noticed, Tripitaka is supremely gullible in this chapter, so sure enough it's migraine time and getting
So in case you think Wukong is just being rash in going for the insta-kills, look at his thought process here. He knows that if he attacks, San Zang is going to recite the spell. But he carefully thought about San Zang's safety and then decided that he should ensure that San Zang is safe and tank through the spell anyway.
demon. In case you haven't noticed, Tripitaka is supremely gullible in this chapter, so sure enough it's migraine time and getting kicked out of the group o'clock. This time Monkey's like, alright, you know what, fine! And after Tripitaka writes an official letter of banishment and Monkey is aggressively polite in taking his leave, Monkey warns Sandy not to buy into Pigsy's BS and then blasts off. Nice one, Tripitaka. So Monkey...
Yeah, so they didn't draw the triple clone bow down here. Basically, Wukong used his clone so that San Zang is forced to accept his vows. As you might be able to tell from the previous comment, Wukong's first and foremost thought throughout the journey is always about San Zang's safety. So, aggressively polite is sort of inaccurate. If anything, Wukong has daddy issues and is too fiercely loyal to parental figures, even if they are just 30 years old.
Not to buy into Pigsy's BS and then blasts off. Nice one, Tripitaka. So Monkey returns to his home on Flower Fruit Mountain, only to find it in ruins. Turns out after Monkey got sealed away, Erlang burned the whole place down for funsies. The remaining monkeys are being hunted at ruins. Blasts off. Monkey got sealed away, Erlang burned the whole place down for...
Yeah, it's not inaccurate Heaven or Erlang Slander down here. But back in the dynastic period, it's considered normal for peasants or underlings to suffer consequences for their ruler's action. Like, it just wasn't thought about in the morally unjust or justness way that we would nowadays. Just simply different circumstances and fate.
Funsies. The remaining monkeys are being hunted every day by a huge band of hunters. So Monkey decides the time has come for some much needed stress relief and brings down the wrath of Wukong on the hunters the next time they appear. So while Monkey's having this come for some much needed...
Change of character down here. In 1592, he was angry for the monkeys. Also look at the change of his emotions as he comes back and then hears the plight of his monkeys while he was gone. When he reached and saw his mountains burned to ruin, he was grief-stricken. As he hears his monkeys talking about being hunted and having to steal grass for food, Wukong became more distressed. And when he hears that his monkeys were eaten by the hunters or kidnapped for street performances, he became terribly angry. The original tone is very different.
Stress relief and brings down the wrath of Wukong on the hunters the next time they appear.
And in regards to the hunters, this is basically some Megiddo shit, except with stones and wind. 1,000 hunters died here according to the text. And going back to the topic just now of Wukong eating humans, well, this current Flower Fruit Mountain needs food. The monkeys have to resort to stealing grass for food. Yet, Wukong only instructs them to take the horses for meat and to toss the human corpses out. Think back to the contrast with what he told San Zang about eating humans.
Here. So while Monkey's having the time of his life as king of the mountain again, the story shifts back to Tripitaka and friends. But let's take a minute to step out of the story and examine it on a meta level, because what just happened was fascinating. This text is centuries old, but the way Monkey's acting could be lifted directly and put in something modern, and it'd make perfect sense. After getting kicked out and losing his purpose, Monkey is visibly emotionally unstable, oscillating between heartbreaking homesickness to cathartic rage to overzealous partying and back again. Like, there's no need to dig deep here. His emotional responses are there for all the world to see. And the reason for that is because we can't forget that the journey to the West is an allegory, and Monkey represents the mind. Monkey just gave up on everything he was trying to do, which was to get Tripitaka to the Thunderclap Monastery. He's basically going through an existential crisis, and the book is representing that perfectly because it's kind of the point of the book. It's like an allegorical roadmap. This is a part of the journey where you'll probably be feeling these things and facing these temptations. The characters feel real and genuine in their reactions to things because they all represent vital components of the human mind, and the way they act is the way we act. It's not like Beowulf, where he's a great and noble king with very little else to define him. These characters are meant to feel real, to be something we can see ourselves in. This book is really good. Anyway, so Tripitaka and friends enter a super ominous pine forest, whereupon things immediately go wrong. First, Pigsy fails to find Tripitaka any food and opts to take a nap instead. Then, while Sandy goes to look for him, Tripitaka enters a pagoda to light incense and pray, and manages to wake up a sleeping demon in the process and get insta-captured. So Sandy manages to find Pigsy and drags him back to the camp, whereupon they find Tripitaka missing and reason that he probably went to check out that beautiful pagoda in the distance. It's only when they get closer that Sandy realizes it's actually a demon cave, at which point Pigsy decides that picking a fight with the demon sounds like a great idea. So they fight, and it's pretty cool. But even with the backup of the various gods that have been assisting Tripitaka on his path, Sandy and Pigsy can only fight the demon to a standstill. But while that's...
Well, my understanding is that the various gods were simply providing buffs from the sky and weren't physically below. Yeah, the text says, assisted in secret in the air.
Assisting Tripitaka on his path, Sandy and Pigsy can only fight the demon to a standstill. But while that's going on, Tripitaka meets with a stroke of luck. Turns out the demon's wife is a kidnapped princess named Hundred Flowers Shame, who's willing to help him in exchange for him delivering news of her whereabouts to her family in the West. So she frees Tripitaka, gives him a letter, and convinces her husband to stop beating up his friends. Tripitaka and friends hurry out the back door and continue westward, soon coming across...
So in 1592, this demon doesn't know that the monk he caught is San Zang, meaning that he doesn't know that letting him go is potentially losing the chance for immortality or whatever. In later TV adaptations, it's common to beautify some characters, like this demon Huang Pao Guai, Yellow Robed Guai. He's depicted as having a soft spot for his wife, and I guess spoilers, but the reason for doing so may be because he is one of the 28 mentions.
Stop beating up his friends. Tripitaka and friends hurry out the back door and continue westward, soon coming across the very kingdom Hundred Flowers Shame was stolen from. Tripitaka delivers the letter to the king, who's profoundly grateful to finally know what happened to his daughter, but sadly says that they're unequipped to stage a rescue if it involves fighting a demon. But surely Tripitaka must be able to, if he's managed to make it this far already. So Tripitaka reluctantly summons his disciples, whereupon the king asks which of them is better at slaying demons. Pigsy gets his brag on and starts showing off his powers, which soundly convinces the king that he's perfectly equipped to go off and fight the same demon he was having worlds of trouble with last time. So Pigsy zips off for the rematch of the century, with Sandy tagging along to make sure he doesn't hurt himself. So Pigsy breaks down the door and proceeds to get his ass soundly kicked, so he excuses himself and runs away, leaving Sandy to try and fight the demon himself. This goes predictably poorly, and Sandy gets captured while Pigsy hides in a thorn bush. So the demon reasons that the disciples must have come back because the princess snuck a letter out with them, and confronts her about it. Obviously she denies it, and when he interrogates Sandy about it, he catches on and denies it too. So the demon immediately switches off the murderous intent and gets all buddy-buddy with his wife again. He then decides to pay a visit to his father-in-law, shapeshifting himself into something a little more presentable. So the demon heads over to the king's court and spins a sob story about some shapeshifting tiger demon he saw threatening the princess way back when, so he drove it off and saved her life and then married her because she never told him she was a princess, and hey look, that guy over there is totally the demon I was talking about! So the demon spins an illusion around Tripitaka, making him look like a tiger monster, which is all the evidence the king needs to have Tripitaka locked up. So things look pretty terrible, right? I mean, Sandy's been captured, Pigsy's off hiding somewhere, Tripitaka's been locked up, and Monkey's back on Flower Fruit Mountain without a care in the world. Who could possibly rescue Tripitaka now?
If only.
That's right! It's finally the horse dragon's time to shine! So the dragon turns back to his true form and scouts out the palace a little, and sees that the demon has returned to his true form and is currently in the process of eating his attendants and drinking all the wine in the palace. So the dragon shapeshifts into a beautiful young woman and scoots into the hall, impressing the demon with magic tricks and singing for him. Soon enough, the demon asks if she can dance, and the dragon's like, oh, a little, but it'll look much better if I use swords. So she does a little sword dance for him until she spots her opening and takes a swing. The dragon turns back to his true form and does battle with the demon for a while, but he's clearly outclassed and ends up having to run after his leg gets injured. He hides at the bottom of the moat until the demon loses interest and then turns back into a horse and limps into the stable for the night. Soon, however, Pigsy comes crawling back, hoping to get some help in rescuing Sandy. Instead, he gets chewed out by the horse for being too overconfident.
Yeah, accurate.
Everything. Pigsy decides the sane course of action would be to pack his things and return to his peaceful life in the village with his own kidnapped wife, but the horse is having precisely none of his sass today and refuses to let him leave, unless it's to go apologize to Monkey and get him to sort this all out. So Pigsy reluctantly flies off to Flower Fruit Mountain, whereupon he finds Sun Wukong hanging out with his enormous monkey army. Pigsy tries to sneak closer, but Monkey spots the intruder and has his monkeys bring him up to the front. He immediately recognizes Pigsy, and after being assured that he hasn't been banished too, Pigsy, rather than owning up to the disaster scenario, instead tells Monkey that nothing's wrong, Tripitaka just missed him so much. So Monkey's like, neat, in that case, let's just hang out for a little while. So Monkey leisurely spends his morning hanging out on his beautiful mountain and eating fruit, while Pigsy tries to find ways to persuade Monkey to leave right this second without seeming too desperate. After a while, Pigsy's like, well, we've sure kept our master waiting, we should probably go. Monkey's like, oh yeah, great, see ya. Pigsy's like, wait, you're not coming? And Monkey's like, no, I got banished, remember? Besides, I got a good thing going here. Tell Tripitaka not to bother me again. So Pigsy leaves, but he's only a few miles down the mountain before he starts ranting and insulting Monkey, so Wukong has his monkeys recapture Pigsy and bring him back to explain his poor manners. So the truth comes out as Pigsy explains how everything went wrong, although he does embellish a little to motivate Monkey to come help him. So Monkey flies to the demon's lair and immediately abducts two of the demon's children, offering to release them in exchange for Sandy.
So let's recap what we saw until down here. From the reader's perspective, we see that everywhere Wukong goes, prospers. Journey with Wukong, smooth sailing if not for the self-sabotage. Journey without Wukong, can't even pass one mountain. Flower Fruit Mountain without Wukong, monkeys hunted by humans had to steal grass for food and no more than 1,000 monkeys left. Flower Fruit Mountain with Wukong immediately starts flourishing as monkeys learn self-defense, fiends and beasts start gathering and having an abundance of food, peach, pear, date and plum trees all replanted. Now, from Ba Jie's perspective, having visited Wukong's home, he finally understands that the one who has the most to lose in seeking the scriptures is Wukong. Like, compared to Ba Jie's small household in a village with a family that doesn't even like him, Wukong has a whole mountain of monkeys and other demons that he sacrificed and whose livelihoods are made worse by him living. And before going back, Wukong also deliberately stopped to wash himself first. He wanted to wash away the Yao odor because San Zang likes cleanliness. And only then did Ba Jie fully realize that Pilgrim was utterly sincere. This is a visit that completely changes Ba Jie's perception of Wukong.
So the truth comes out as Pigsy explains how everything went wrong, although he does embellish a little to motivate Monkey to come help him. So Monkey flies to the demon's lair and immediately abducts two of the demon's children, offering to release them in exchange for Sandy. The princess runs back inside and frees him, and Monkey, after reuniting with Sandy, sends them off to the palace with the two kids in tow to lure out the demon and bring him back to his lair. Meanwhile, Monkey shapeshifts into the princess and waits in the cave for the demon to return. So Sandy and Pigsy drop the kids in front of the palace, killing them, but it's okay because they were evil or something. And the demon, a little
Well, you can use any abortion arguments here really, but also remember that the worldview back then was different.
kids in front of the palace, killing them, but it's okay because they were evil or something. And the demon, a little too hungover to want to fight, decides to check his lair first to see if they really were his kids and if he needs to avenge them. So the demon returns to his cave, whereupon he finds totally the real princess crying her eyes out about her two dead kids. The demon's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get him right after I make sure you're okay, darling." Princess Monkey is like, "Oh man, I'm just so distraught." So the demon's like, "Don't worry, honey, I've got an elixir for exactly that." Whereupon Monkey takes it, swallows it whole, and reverts to his true form in preparation for some cathartic ass kicking. So they have an epic battle and it's really cool, but when Monkey fakes an error and uses the opportunity to get in a solid hit, the demon straight up vanishes. Monkey scans all four directions but can't find him, puts two and two together, and realizes that the demon must have been a heavenly spirit, which explains why he couldn't find him anywhere on Earth. So he busts his way into heaven again, what is this, like the fourth time, and demands to know what spirits were unaccounted for. Turns out the demon was really Ravati, the woodwolf star, known to us.
Yeah, so regarding the names, I actually think we should use Chinese names, but I don't really know what's proper. Just my understanding is that mythologies have changed so much after being adapted to Chinese that it's just different. Well, I just checked Wikipedia and Guan Yin and Avalokitesvara are now separate pages. So I guess I was right, just that it's something people only realize these few years.
Us modern people as Zeta Piscium. See, turns out the princess was actually another heavenly courtier, in this case an incense tender, who desperately wanted to elope with him. He was afraid that such an act would be unthinkable in heaven, so the two of them departed to Earth to carry on their love in secret. And yeah, if you think too hard about it, it kinda makes the entire story fall apart, but we don't have to worry about it anymore.
So there's debate over what Kui Mu Lang, Woodwolf Star, says is real, but let's get his story right first. According to him, the incense tender went down first, and here the translation is wrong. It's not just assuming a human form, she got reincarnated and didn't remember her past life. And if we simply look at the text, before Wukong shapeshifts into the princess, the narration text writes, her marriage to the monster, moreover, was fated to end, and that was why the great sage made his appearance. So the narration tells us that the story is probably real. This is just the author demonstrating karma, which is of course a Buddhist concept. Essentially, the princess's 13 years of marriage is her consequence due to her past life sins of eloping. Of course, by modern worldviews, the story seems like it doesn't add up. That's why adaptations tend to romanticize their relationship further.
Too hard about it, it kinda makes the entire story fall apart, but we don't have to worry about it anymore because the demon is in custody and all that's left to do is to pick up Tripitaka. So the princess explains everything to her father, the king, and they head down to get Tripitaka, who's still locked up in the illusion of a tiger. After Monkey gets his sass on for a little bit, he frees Tripitaka from the spell and everyone is friends again.
Will Pigsy stop being dragged around by his own base desires? Will Sandy ever win a fight? Will Tripitaka learn to trust Monkey's judgment? Will Monkey learn the benefits of communication? And will the horse ever do anything plot relevant again? Find out next time on Journey to the West.
Yeah, I hear the Dragon Ball music. Let's also look at some notable comments below the video. So one commenter said that the reason Pai Long Ma burns down his dad's palace was because his wife was cheating on him with this 9-headed demon dude, who used to be his friend. Well, this thing is inaccurate to the 1592 text. I think it's probably one of the adaptations. Pai Long Ma in 1592 didn't get that much exposition in terms of his backstory. The burning was sort of just being an inobedient child, and it's entirely possible that Bai Long Ma in the 1592 version is simply a kid. So another commenter questioned why Wukong is so chill with Ba Jie after all the sabotage. There's a Chinese proverb, 不打不相识. Friends are often made after a fight. The relationship that encapsulates this the best is probably Lang and Wukong after 1592 adaptations, such as in Black Myth Wukong. Well, one more saying that Princess Hundred Flowers Shame and Wood Wolf Star are both reincarnated. Well, actually, I believe Wood Wolf Star simply went down without reincarnating. I mean, according to the text, he still got the golden plug, and the other 27 constellations all recognize him. The difference between Yao and Xian, demon and immortal, is not of DNA, but simply position. Just think about Wukong. At Flower Fruit Mountain, he is a Yao, but just by simply giving him a position in heaven, he becomes a Xian and immortal. Wukong himself didn't change physically at all. And well, that's it for this episode. If you want to learn more about Journey to the West, you should watch the explanation videos I made previously, which also happens to answer some questions asked in OSP's next episode preview.